Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another season, another episode, another hopefully enjoyable listen to the Tigers Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Chris Schulte. Now, for those of you who want to know what determines a season, I will tell you. To me, the start of a new season on the podcast is when pitchers and catchers report to spring training. So it started in 2021. That was the first season. Actually, it kind of started in was it December of 2020 when I made my first episode? I don't remember. But anyway, that encompassed the entire 2021 season. 2022 season started when pitchers and catchers reported last year. Of course, it was a strike-shortened spring training, a lockout-shortened spring training, sorry. There was no strike. It was a lockout. Today, the recording of this podcast, because it is still Wednesday at the time I record this, it is 11:40 at night, but it is still Wednesday. At the recording of this podcast, it is the day that pitchers and catchers officially reported for spring training for the Detroit Tigers. A.J. Hinch had his opening press conference, and in his opening remarks, of course, he paid tribute to those who were injured and lost their lives in the Michigan State University mass shooting, which happened early on Valentine's Day. And I thought that was a very classy move on AJ's part. There's a time, and I'm making this point because 3 of AJ Hinch's coaches are coaches from the Big Ten, which is the athletic conference that Michigan State plays in. You've got Michigan, your pitching coach, Chris Fetter from the University of Michigan, your hitting coach, Michael Berdar from the University of Michigan, and assistant pitching coach Robin Lund from the University of Iowa. And basically what AJ did was said, at this point, there are no rivalries when it comes to situations like this, and he's right. I'm a Michigan fan. I'm a guy who, if a Michigan State Spartan were drowning and he wanted me to save him, I'd offer him a glass of water. I don't feel any love toward Michigan State University or its fans or its players. But at this point, there are certain times when life goes deeper than sports and life goes deeper than rivalries. And I think A.J. Hinch's opening remarks today were very poignant and were well timed and were very well applied. So with that, not only did his press conference touch on a situation that's a life situation, but it also opened the spring training season for the Detroit Tigers. As I said in my podcast last week, a couple weeks ago now, I am excited. I am very excited about the fact that spring training is back. Spring training is a full 6 weeks. Spring training has no restrictions on it. Cody Stavenhagen's in Florida. Evan Woodbury's in Florida. Evan Petzold's in Florida. Dan Dickerson is in Florida. Jason Beck is in Florida. And not only are they in Florida, they were in Florida last year, and that's fine, but they have absolutely complete access to the clubhouse, to the players. They can do sit-down interviews with the players. They can't talk to the coaches because AJ doesn't let anybody talk to the coaches. But at the end of the day, they are there and they are doing their work without COVID restrictions in a full spring training. It is 44 days until opening day, and they are doing their work without any restrictions, and pitchers and catchers are doing their work without having to ramp up too quickly. And it's going to be, look, I'm excited because it's back to normal. It's back to the way things used to be. It's back to the way things started out in 2020 and then got derailed by COVID. And then would have started out last year except for the lockout. 2021 was a full spring training, but there were COVID restrictions and there were limited fans in the stands. And it was great to have limited fans in the stands because it was better than what you saw, what the regular season was in 2020. Okay? But this is normal. This is the way it should have been 3 years ago. This is the way it should have been 2 years ago. This is the way it should have been last year. This is the way it was 3 years ago until COVID hit. And all the things that went along with it. So it's life getting back to normal that excites me. And you know what? It's my squad. My Tigers are my Tigers. They are my team. I've been rooting for them since I was a little boy. I grew up playing baseball in the backyard. I was Alan Trammell. My best friend at the time when I was a kid was Kirk Gibson because he was left-handed and I was right-handed. And they were both really good players. Even when Gibby left the Tigers to go to be with the Dodgers in '88, my buddy was still Kirk Gibson. And I was still Alan Trammell. This is how far back this goes for me. This is how deep of a love I have for this team. And I get excited every year whether the team's going to be good, bad, or indifferent because it's my squad. It's my squad. And people make fun of me for the passion that I show for this team. But I can't do it any other way because it's my squad. These are my boys. And I'm glad to be able to share time with you guys and talk with you guys about my squad. I really am. I just wish that the owner was a little bit better. But anyway, that's a whole different story. That's a whole kettle of fish that we're not going to get into today. We are going to get into a few things that we found out this afternoon. First and foremost, a couple of signings that didn't get covered last time around. Matt Whistler and Chase Fry were were signed to minor league contracts with invites to major league camp. So that brings the total number of people that are that are not on the 40-man roster to 24 in big league camp. Of course, the World Baseball Classic rosters were announced last week. Javi Baez is there for Puerto Rico for the Tigers. There's a few minor leaguers on that squad on a few squads as well. None of them of any note. But Eduardo Rodriguez and Miguel Cabrera are with Team Venezuela. And I can't remember who else. There was one more that was with Venezuela. The bottom line is there are 5 Tigers who are going to be playing in the World Baseball Classic, and as a result, they will be out of camp. Jonathan Scope is with Team Netherlands. So yeah, there's going to be 5 guys that aren't in the big league camp for a time. Now, my guess is once the team gets eliminated, they have to come back, and that's fine because, it is what it is. Apparently there are no travel issues this time around, and that was important because in 2020, if you guys remember correctly, and it might have been in 21 as well, Jonathan Scope had issues with his visa. And Detroit signed him in 2020, and he didn't report to camp until like mid to late March in 2020. Like it was just before camp was closed that he actually showed up because he couldn't get his visa situation sorted quick enough. And so he's good. Eduardo Rodriguez, I think Eduardo Rodriguez stays in Miami. I think he's a permanent resident of the United States, if not an American citizen, and stays in Miami. I know Miguel Cabrera does. So yeah, the travel visa situation is fine, apparently, according to AJ. The only one that I think it would really affect the most is Scope, because Netherlands plays in the A pool with Taiwan, Cuba, China, and I can't remember the other squad. But the Netherlands plays there, and So he's got to go to Taiwan at the beginning of March. So that might be a thing that he has to deal with at that point. So we found out that the travel visa situations are fine. Matt Whistler signed by the Tigers to a minor league deal. Chase Fry signed by the Tigers to a minor league deal. So those are the most recent updates. Casey Mize gave an update on his health. So did Alex Faedo. So did Spencer Turnbull. So did Tarek. Well, Tarek Skubal, I don't think talked to the media. I didn't see anything about it anyway. Turnbull is apparently completely recovered from Tommy John, which he should be. He had surgery in 2021, so that should be fine. Casey Mize also underwent a back surgery while he was getting ready or doing his rehab on the Tommy John surgery. He's fine from the back surgery. He's recovered from that, and he is now working on doing the rehab from Tommy John. He might actually not be available until 2024, which is pretty much where we thought he was going to be anyway. He underwent Tommy John in July, I believe it was, of last year, or June of last year. Dr. Keith Meister performed the surgery. So in all honesty, I didn't expect to see him back until spring training of next year anyway, because of the timing of the Tommy John surgery. Tarek Skubal apparently is in a throwing progression and is playing catch out to 90 feet, which is a good thing. Alex Faedo, his hip is fine. He's recovered from hip surgery, and he's actually pitching. He was pitching to Jake Rogers today, which, of course, Jake Rogers is completely recovered from his Tommy John surgery. He's making all the throws, apparently. And from what Alex was saying, he's on. He's back to what he was pre Tommy John surgery. Is Jake Rogers, and that's good news for the Tigers as well. That we'll get into a little bit of that in just a minute. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Alex Faedo because he's changed his delivery a little bit. He's gone to back to a three-quarter arm slot instead of a full normal arm slot that pitchers use. This three-quarter delivery that he has is one that he was using in college, and it's what got him drafted. And then he changed it to a regular delivery, a regular arm slot, because he felt like that was what was going to get him to the big leagues. He didn't trust the three-quarter arm delivery. And Robin Lund and the pitching people in Detroit said, "Hey, look, if this is the way that you would normally throw, if this is what you're comfortable with, do it." And they worked out some mechanics to where he can actually do well with that delivery. The hip surgery was interesting because he actually had a torn labrum in his hip, which they repaired, but they also reshaped his hip capsule and shaved off part of his pelvis because his hip joint is a hinge joint and not a ball and socket joint like a normal hip. Now, for those of you who aren't really all that into medical stuff, your classic hinge joint is going to be your elbow. It looks like a door hinge. It opens, it closes. It raises and lowers your forearm. The ball and socket joint is going to be more like your shoulder. Your knee is also a classic hinge joint. The ball and socket joint is going to be more like your shoulder. It swivels. It allows you to, in the case of the hip, it allows you to move your leg left and right as well as forward and backward. So it allows you to move your femur left and right as well as forward and backward. And of course, your femur being attached via the knee joint to your lower leg, your tibia and your fibula, that allows you to maintain, to create locomotion. So his hip joint has always been like this, apparently. And they've done some reconstructive surgery on it to make it more of a ball and socket joint. So I found that to be kind of interesting. Now, let's go ahead and get into a couple things, pitchers and catchers. Your catching situation looks a little bit like this. Josh Crouch did not get invited to big league camp. Josh Crouch is a catching prospect that is in Double-A. He just got promoted to Double-A right at the end of last season when Dylan Dingler got hurt. Dylan Dingler did get invited to camp. I believe Dingler's on the 40-man. So he's up in camp. And, of course, Jake Rogers got invited to camp. Now, along with that are catchers Michael Papierski and Andrew Knapp and Mario Feliciano. Now, Feliciano and Papierski and Knapp are all guys that Detroit claimed off of waivers or signed to minor league deals with a major league invite. Andrew Knapp is the one that's got the most experience. He was with, I want to say he was with the Angels at one point. I've seen his name on a major league roster. I just don't remember where. They are going to be contending for the backup spot. Eric Haas is the starting catcher. They're going to be contending for the backup spot, and that's going to be a thing. Now, what I wanted to discuss about this is the simple fact that if Jake Rogers is back to where he was defensively in 2021, that gives him a huge leg up on everybody else because Andrew Knapp's pitch framing wasn't that good. Feliciano he's a AAA, he's a minor leaguer for a reason. Dylan Dingler's not ready for big league for the majors yet. He wants to get to the big leagues, but he's not there yet. He's not ready yet. He's got a career .238 average. He's just not there. Defensively, he has a lot to work on still, but look, the guy's a converted center fielder, so give him some time. Knapp is, like I said before, his pitch framing is a little bit suspect, and he's not very good offensively. Papierski was with, I want to say he was with the Giants last year for a time and got released. But at the end of the day, this is Jake Rogers' job to claim if he wants it. He just has to get out there and do the work. All Jake Rogers has to do is be what he was in 2021 defensively and hit just a little bit. If he hits enough, then he'll be on the opening day roster going north. But he needs to hit. That's the bottom line. Detroit needs offense. Look, Detroit hit 110 home runs last year as a team. So at the end of the day, they need somebody that's going to hit just a little bit. He probably needs to hit about 240, 250, and he'll be good. I don't expect to see him hit double-digit homers. He doesn't have to. If he plays in a backup role, he's going to be hitting ninth anyway. All he needs to do is turn the lineup over for the guys up top. Speaking of homers, I saw a projection that said that Austin Meadows was going to hit 20 homers this year. Javi Baez was going to lead the team with 22. Eric Haas was going to hit 12. Well, that right there is 54 homers from three guys. I will take that. Because Scope's going to hit double-digit homers. Torque's going to hit double-digit homers. Riley Green's going to hit double-digit homers. Kerry Carpenter is probably going to make this team as a reserve outfielder /DH to give Miguel Cabrera some rest. He's going to hit you double-digit homers. I'll take 54 homers from Baez, Meadows, and Haas. I'll take that every day and twice on Sundays. And you know what? I don't think 20 homers is the limit for Austin Meadows. Austin Meadows met with the media earlier and basically said that, he sat down with Evan Woodbury of MLive.com, and he said that he's mentally in a good place. He's physically healthy. He's at the weight that he wants to be at physically. He lost weight, but put it on, but also maintained muscle mass. And so he feels like he's where he needs to be. So you know what? Maybe he hits 25. Maybe he's your home run leader. Javi Baez is playing for a contract. Whether he stays in Detroit in 24 or opts out of his contract at the end of the year, if he performs well, he's going to opt out and he's going to go try to get more money elsewhere. Don't know whether he's going to get it or not. But I honestly don't think this team is as bad offensively as they were last year. I really don't, because I think that just for whatever reason, whether it was the lockout, whatever it was, this team just underperformed miserably last year. So I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to give you my quick prediction. Pre-spring training. This is a 75-win team. It's 75-87. It's not going to make the playoffs. It's not going to finish above 500. It's not even going to finish close to 500. It'll probably be fourth in the division again this year. But it's going to there's going to be a 9-game improvement because the offense is going to be better. The pitching is going to be better. You've got a solid starting rotation. You've got solid people. You've got good depth in the starting pitching side of things. Look, Alex Faedo, Bo Brisky, Garrett Hill, Joey Wentz. Those guys got some important experience last year because if things go south with Matt Boyd or with Michael Lorenzen or with Spencer Turnbull or with Matt Manning's had a history of being hurt. The last 2 years, 3 years, because he had to shut it down in at the alternate site in 2020 because of biceps soreness, tightness in his biceps. So, if Eduardo Rodriguez decides that he needs a mental health break or he hurts himself, look, any one of these 5 guys has injury issues. I don't think, Lorenzen does too. Any of these 5 guys has injury issues. What's Turnbull's health going to look like after Tommy John? How well is he going to pitch? What's his control going to look like? Matt Manning spent a lot of time on the injured list last year. Spent some time on the injured list in 2021. Of course, Matt Boyd with the flexor tendon issue. So, ultimately, there is still a possibility that you see one of those other 4, if not multiple of those other 4, in the big leagues this year. I don't see Detroit starting 17 different starting pitchers. I just don't. They're not going to do that. But I do think Detroit is going to need to test that depth a little bit. But I think offensively they're going to be better. I think their pitching is going to stay healthier. And I think it's an improvement of 9 games. They win 75. And we'll see where it goes in 2024 because there's some money coming off the books. Detroit will have been an improved team. Scott Harris will be more comfortable in the job. I just think there's a definite possibility that you could see better from Detroit in 2024. But I think you're going to see better from Detroit in 2023 as well. They're going to be a 75-win team. And the offense is not... Look, the offense can't go any worse. I suppose it could, but let's hope it doesn't. With that, I want to thank Anchor for distributing the podcast. Check us out on YouTube, www.youtube.com/@TB Podcast. We're on Mastodon, TB Podcast at hitithere.cafe. Twitter is, of course, at Podcast Tigers. You can email the show, tigersbaseballpodcast@gmail.com. That is the longest email address in the world, and I'm proud of it. We will talk to you when games start. So the first pitch of spring training for the Tigers is February 25th. We will talk to you probably on the 27th or the 28th of February, depending.